So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for choosing this session over all the others. I know there's lots of sessions to choose from, so I'm really glad that you chose to be at my session. So my name is Hanno, and today I would like to talk about Spring Boot, and let's see in what time I can manage to build a Spring Boot application for you guys. Or actually, I really need you guys with me, because I'm going to be asking you guys to participate in defining the requirements for our application. So I haven't prepared anything at all. You know, it's just, well, it's up to you guys. And I hope that we will be having an enjoyable session. So first of all, maybe it's a good idea to talk about myself for a short while. Wow, that's a big picture. Whew. I'm really sorry, guys. I don't know about all your health insurances and how many it will cost these companies to pay for the physical damage that this did. Okay, about myself, my name is Hanno, and I have been a Java developer for, I guess, over 10 years or something. I have worked with classic Spring frameworks lots of times, and well, currently in my current project, I'm not working with Spring Boot, but in my spare time, I wanted to investigate what is this kind of framework, and how does it compare to classic Spring, and what can you do with it? So, and I was quite surprised at the speed that you could just develop your own application and be up and running in quite a short amount of time. So, and that's where the idea came from, to just live code an application in like 30 minutes. That's what I'm trying to do today, and let's hope that I make it. Well, you will be the judge of that, of course. So let's continue, and maybe it's well, I haven't told you where I work yet, so let's talk about that. So I work at Info Support, which is a great place to work for Java developers, all kinds of jobs, projects around the country, and very challenging work. And of course, InfoSport gives me some time to fiddle around with Spring Boot in my spare time. So that's great, and the opportunity to speak at conferences. Now, before we start, I'm very interested to see who has worked with the classic Spring framework. Show of hands. Wow, that's a lot of you guys. Yeah, it's like 2/3 or something. And are there also people who have some experience with Spring Boot? Yeah. Great to see. Well, you could be the judge of what I'm doing and if I'm doing it right or wrong. So please speak up if you want. Also, if you have any questions, just ask them if they pop into your head. No problem. So for those of you that haven't worked with Spring Boot yet, but maybe some Spring experience or no Spring experience at all, doesn't really matter for this talk. So Spring Boot, what is it exactly, and why was it? Why was this project started anyway? From the Spring website itself, it says Spring Boot takes an opinionated view of building production-ready Spring applications, and it favors convention over configuration. Also, it is designed to get you up and running as quickly as possible. Well, that's great news for me, because I need to be able to run this in like 30 minutes. So I'm really happy to read that. So in this definition, you can already see that there is a difference between the classic Spring framework and Spring Boot, because Spring Boot favors convention over configuration. Now, those of you who have worked with a classic Spring framework will surely recognize that you need tons of XML files just to be able to map your beans correctly. And I know in recent versions of Spring, this has improved slightly by using annotations. But I started out with the classic Spring framework, and the only thing you could do at that time was provide XML mapping files. So it was a lot of manual work, and well, there could easily be a mistake in your XML file. So that wasn't really nice. So what are the key features of Spring Boot? Well, one of the key features is that it creates standalone applications, so you don't need to run your separate web server. Your Spring Boot application will, after you build it, will result in just one jar file, which will also contain the application server that you run it with. So the end product of your build pipeline will be one jar file. And you can start it up, and it will launch an internal embedded web server. Well, this is what I said, right? No WAR files, just one jar. to rule them all. Yeah, I heard you think it. Yeah. So automatic Spring configuration wherever possible. So Spring Boot assumes lots of default settings. And of course you can override them, but they are well thought of, well thought out, and these defaults really correspond to the defaults that most of the people use when using the classic Spring framework. So they try to well, embed the preferences of the majority of the users of Spring in Spring Boot. And so no XML configuration. That's the difference from Spring Classic, and also no code generation. There has been another project of the Spring team called Spring.ru, which focuses entirely on code generation. This is not the case in Spring Boot. You just use very much of the library's files itself to, tap in these default settings. And it still tries to offer all Spring features available. So that's really nice if it really works like what it says on the slide. But we will get to that. We will discover it. So some advantages: you don't need a separate web server, and also because you are just running one jar, you can get a little better debugging in IDEs because you can just attach to the remote process. It works a bit faster, and I've seen some faster deployments, about 50% performance gain in deploying your jar file. Well, it was a small test set, so this could differ for your project, but in comparison, 50% is about the average. And you don't need any web XML file or any configuration classes. Well, you don't need it, to get up and running. There might be cases where you might want to customize the default, and then you would need some configuration, but not by default, and certainly not in the example I will show you. In fact, you could say you could be up and running with just one Java file and a build script. That sounds like very little work, so it's perfect for my demonstration. Well, of course, there are setbacks, drawbacks, some cons. If you want to do some custom configuration, it will be a bit of a puzzle, but not very complicated. Just it will take you a little more time because you don't use the default settings. And this is a thing you never want to do, I guess. Port your legacy Spring project to Spring Boot, because you had in classic Spring you had all these XML files in which you could just customize everything. And if you want to port this, I guess you would still need lots of configuration. But in Spring Boot, it doesn't work with XML files, so you need to replace it all by annotations, and it could get very messy, I guess. So I would recommend Spring Boot when you're starting out, when you're starting a new application. And of course, this is a big drawback. It uses Spring. Not everyone likes Spring. Not everyone is using Spring right now. Roughly half of the Java community favors Java E. So at the moment, it's just you can just use it if you like Spring, if you're prepared to use it. But I'll return to this comment in the final slide. So what do you need to do when you start a Spring Boot project? Well, let's first talk a bit about what I claimed earlier, that you can be up and running with one Java file and a build script. Well, this is not entirely true. Actually, you need 2 Java files. Because bottom class, you need an application class, which is annotated with the Spring Boot application annotation, and a main method, which will run when your jar is executed. And, well, the lower class will be enough to run your application, but of course you want your application also to do something. So for example, with a simple REST application, you need to build at least one REST controller that is mapped to a certain request address, and that will return some response when you call that request URL. So 2 Java files will be enough to be up and running with a simple application. And of course you need a build script to be able to compile and build your software. For example, this is a Gradle file which comes with the Spring Initializer project. I will talk about that a bit later. And this is effectively all you need to be able to work with your project and with your software. Well, what's great about Spring Boot is that a lot of convenient starter dependencies are available. They all follow the same naming pattern, so if you include them in your Maven file or your Gradle file, you can just use this naming pattern and add the dependency that you need. And I've listed a few right here. For example, the test dependency started to be able to use JUnit and Hemcrest-Matcher's libraries. But also, if you want a classic web application, it will. If you use Starter Web, it will use all the dependencies that are needed from a Spring MVC Web. Data JPA, you can use JPA in your Spring application. And there are lots of other dependency descriptors, so you can find them on the Springwood website. There are like 50 of them, or even more. I guess they I add them daily, so. I guess your requirement is bound to be in there somewhere, so search the pages and you'll find it. Well, right there. Now, I talked about Spring Initializer earlier, and so let's visit this web page. So it looks like this, and it's in fact it's just a quick start website where you can just add some dependencies right there, and because beforehand it could be possible that that you're going to build a web application, so you could just type web in the dependencies text box, and you can download a project setup, and you can import it into your IDE, and you're already, you have a good start. So you already have a build script and all those things. So I will be using Spring Initializer in a few minutes after we have done defining the requirements for our application. So what do you say? Is there someone with a question that he's dying to ask, or shall we just continue with the live coding? No, live coding it is then. Okay. Well, I hope you guys all brought your mobile devices or laptops or whatever you brought, because we are going to play a little voting game. Let's hope the Wi-Fi actually works, right? It's terrible, yeah. I'll try to set it up anyway. Well, I tried this demo in the hallway a few hours ago, and it worked just fine, but well, that's what you'll see. Sorry? Yeah, I was already looking for it. It's a good suggestion, though. Oh. Sorry, what? Yeah, Well, also I found the long cable, so let's try that one. So let's stop this one. It's not working anyway. I don't even know where my Ethernet port is, you know. I never use it. Is this working or no? Yeah, bummer. This is a bit better, I guess. Stop this. Yes, yes. Hey, I can sign in. Well, I don't know. Well, thank you very much for that suggestion. Find the Ethernet cable. Yeah, I'm not. Okay, so we are going to play a game of what purpose, what database. This is just a standard poll in Kahoot. So start it up, and on the screen a URL will appear, or actually you just need to go to kahoot.it and use the game pin. I hope some people will get in, you know, because it's still the same Wi-Fi, I guess. Or maybe you could just all use your 4G network. Oh, yeah. This looks great, guys. Thank you. Yeah. So I did this talk at a previous conference, and I told the crowd that I was a very enthusiastic Feyenoord fan, and so some people used the usernames Ajax forever, and wij zijn Ajax, wij zijn de beste, and all those. Yeah. I guess you guys wouldn't be so bold, right? Challenge accepted. Yeah. So thanks a lot, guys, for joining. We'll be starting in 7 seconds, 8 seconds, 14. Oh, it starts. Oh, this is right. It resets when someone's joining. Yeah. No, that's not what I mean. So I want to ask you, what kind of app are we building? So what purpose should our application fulfill? And also, what database are we using? Let me see if I can start this manually. Like this? Not really. Sorry? Yeah, I thought I could start this manually, but I guess not. Here we go. Are you ready? I'm going to ask you, what purpose should our Spring Boot application fulfill? Oh, there's some music. So I put some pictures here, but I don't mean to influence the voting or anything. So just focus on these options. Don't look at the picture at all, right? So should we build a movie database, a task planner, or a Crossbar catalog? You know, I don't really have a preference, but I guess you guys do, so. 38 answers, wow. Wow, that's a very clear response. We are going to build a Crossbar catalog. So again, don't look at the picture, but what database should our Spring Boot app use? Are we going to build relational with JPA, you know, the old school way? Or are we going to use Couchbase or MongoDB? The point is I don't really care, and neither does Spring Boot, but I guess you guys care, so. Yes, old school for life, bros. Yeah, relational JPA, I like it. I just like it. Well, thanks very much. You know, in like 10 minutes time, we'll do another Kahoot to make sure that the other requirements are met. But for now, I think we got enough information to get started. So let's go to Spring Initializer, and let's generate a Gradle project with the latest stable version of Spring Boot. Let's call our application nl.jfile, and let's call it beers, or you know, beer shop, doesn't really matter. So you guys said let's build a Crossbar catalog with JPA, right? That's what you said. So we're going to need the JPA dependency, And also, let's add DevTools, which is a great library just to be able to do some hot deployment and all those things. So I add this at every project I do. And for testing, I would like to use an in-memory database. So let's add H2 also. In case you're wondering, how do you know what to type here? Well, I know because they exist. But there's also a full version of this this tool, in which you can just select all the requirements. Because so H2 is right here, JPA. You know, you can just scroll this page if you want to see what kind of options there are. So lots of options. Azure support, social integration. It's great. It's great. Possibilities are endless. Yeah. So let's stick with the simple version and generate the project by pressing Alt-Enter. Now, we downloaded a zip file, and I did this before. Yeah, you guys can notice. I did this before. Yeah. Busted. So let's extract these files to a location that is handy for us, like this. It's a miracle there's no beers folder in there. Well, oh, there's a beers folder, but not a beers folder. Well, okay, I got lucky. So let's import this project right now because it was also already there's already been a project right here. I guess I need to. Yes, I need to refresh this one. There it goes. Let's select the Gradle file, use auto import, and import this project. Okay, well, there we go. So let's first look at what Springwood generated for us right here. So we have a build.gradle build script, which includes all these different dependencies that we just used. So that's great. And also there are some basic source code that was added. And while I'm looking for all these classes, all the dependencies are retrieved. Can you guys read this at the back, by the way? This is okay? Also this folder structure, yeah? Okay, well, that's great. Thanks for the heads up. So the first application class has been generated by Spring. This is exactly the same class that I showed you on the slides earlier. This is called the beers application, and when we are running the jar file that Springwood generates, this will also be run. Now, let's add some functionality. So you guys said, let's create a Crossbar catalog. Well, for starters, we would need a beer class, so let's create that one. Well, what should this beer class contain? I guess it should have an ID. To be able to see where it is in the database, of course. Let's make it a private one. I just was told by Peter Hilton in the previous session that I can't use ID anymore. But I'm still going to. Sorry, Peter. Let's also add a name, a beer name, because all these beers have a name, of course. Maybe a beer style. You know, if I had more time, I would create a style enum or something. But right now, let's just store it in a string. And maybe the percentage of alcohol that's present in the beer, because then you know how many you can have before you have to leave. So let's call this ABV. And just for convenience, I'm going to generate some getters and setters here, because we are going to need them. Sorry? Lombok, yeah. Oh, you're so right. You're so right. But I need to fit this in half an hour, so. Okay, there we go. Well, it's a bit ugly that the getters and setters are on top, but well, I don't really care for right now. So we are going to work with JPA. So in order to retrieve these beers from the database, it would be a very good idea to create a repository. Those of you that have some experience with Spring will immediately recognize this term as the class responsible for interacting with the database. But you can also call it a data access object or whatever you want. It is quite important that you annotate this class with a repository, so that Spring knows this is a repository. It's a Spring component, so it can be auto-wired and all those things. Now, there's a very... before I continue, I made this a class, but I really want this to be an interface, because Spring Boot does a very smart thing by providing at runtime, an interface implementation class that implements all basic methods like find all and delete and save with ID. The most common operations on your database will be auto-implemented by Springwood. So I don't even have to use a class here for the most basic operations. So let's start with the interface, and we're going to make it extend the JPA repository, in which I can also pass some generic type arguments. And the first one represents the class that we are going to save. So this is the beer class, and the second one represents the type of our ID field. And I guess I chose long, so let's choose long for that. Well, here we go. This looks all right. I guess I forgot some fields at the beer class because beer, for starters, is an entity. So let's add the entity annotation from JavaX persistence, and also we need to annotate this ID field with ID, and also with generated value, so that it will be incremented when you add another item in your database. I guess this looks okay for now. So why don't we run a few tests and see whether these beers are getting stored into the in-memory database, yes or no. So I have some tests saved before, because otherwise I couldn't fit this in half an hour. So I'm going to find some tests. Let's use the beer test one, and go to the test folder. This one is not really necessary, so let's delete it and paste our test file. This class name is still broken, so let's call it beer test. Well, I have auto-wired the beer repository that we just created, and I'm setting up by inserting a beer. This is a good one, by the way, but it's very hard to get. If you need some bottles, please contact me after the talk. Yeah, I will make it work for you. This is also a bit strange. I guess I just get a list from find all. Let's see. Yeah, I get a list, so no need for this collection type. Don't pin this. So let's have a list of beers right here. Some imports. There you go. So the test is very simple. I just set up the test by saving one beer in the beer repository, and after this is executed, I just assert that there is one beer in the database. So this could take a while, so I will start this test, and in the meantime we will venture forth to the next Kahoot session, in which we will see what other requirements our application needs. So I'll try to start up one. Hope the connection is working this time. Kahoot number 2. Yeah. Here we go. It looks okay. So it's a different Kahoot. So the game pin will be slightly different, but well, the main mechanic is the same. So if you want to join, please join and enter this game pin. No football-related usernames, right? Or I will come after you. What's this? You know, I can ban players from competing. I don't know if you know that. But this is most certainly not me. So at the last conference I did this talk, I brought some stroopwafels, Dutch cookies for the foreigners. And one person just said, I hate cookies, I hate stroopwafels. So he didn't get any. Yeah, this is also a nice one. Yeah. Oh, meanwhile, let's see if our test has succeeded. I guess it has. That's great. Oh, I'll come back to this later, I guess. Yeah, so we'll be starting in 10 seconds, hopefully. Not really. Oh. I don't like this one. No, I don't like it. No, that's just uncalled for, right? I like your Unicode skills, by the way. This is great. I've never thought of this. Yeah. Okay, so here goes. And the first question I would like to ask is, what architecture are we going to use? And this is a fairly simple one. Are we going to do classic web or REST interface? Spring Web application with web controllers, and then we need a templating engine, or are we going to do some REST controllers, AngularJS? Well, AngularJS is a bit outdated, I know, but well. Okay, everyone wants a single page application. That's great. This one is not really relevant, so I'm going to skip this one, if I can. I'm not sure why. Or don't skip it, we'll just wait. So if you guys would have chosen a web application in the past question, then I would need to know what templating language you would use. And right now it doesn't really matter, because we chose a single page application with AngularJS. So this is a great result, but we're not going to use it. Next question is important. More important, what web server should we use? Should we use Jetty or Tomcat? Well, I don't really care, and neither does Spring Boot. But maybe you guys got a preference. Everyone has answered, and the answer is Tomcat. Okay, well, thank you guys. So this means we're going to do a single page application. With AngularJS, I was meaning to update this example to Angular 2, but I didn't have the time, so maybe next time. But the point is not really about the Angular views that I created, because I've created them beforehand. You know, it's just about how we wire all things together. You could easily replace it with an Angular 2 front end. It's no problem. So, okay. First thing we need to do when we are doing a single page application with a REST interface is add this REST dependency to our build file. So let's start by doing that. We need to add a compile element, and we're going to need this one, Springwood starter. So let's copy it and add data REST. Let's save it, and it will bring in this dependency. This is all very, very well. And let's get started on our REST controller. So we are going to use a beer controller class, and we are going to annotate it with REST controller. And also we need a URL where this controller is listening. So let's add a request mapping. And I guess it will be at rest/beer. So localhost and port number /rest/beer will be the location of our REST application. Now, of course, we are going to need a beer repository, because otherwise we can't do anything with it. So let's add a beer repository right here. And let's get started by listing all beers that are currently present in the database. That's, I think, a basic requirement. So let's map this to the get mapping at this URL, rest/beer. And we're going to say it's a public void add beer. No, not add. We're going to do list beers. And the implementation is quite simple. We just go to the beer repository and we ask the beer repository, find all. This returns a list of beer. Oh, it shouldn't be a void, sorry. It should be a list of beer. And this should be returned like this. Well, fairly simple, I guess. Also, we are going to need some views. So I'm going to create a folder here. I call it static, which will be served by the web server as all the static properties. So our JS files can be in here, can go right here. Also, we need to have AngularJS present right here. So let's see where we are. Wow, this is taking a long time. Slash, I guess it's source. There's source. No, not source. This is also not okay. Oh, we need to see. Source, main resources, also not. Here. Okay. Another subfolder. Okay, right here, I'm going to install a version of Angular. A very old one, but it's the one that I need for my demo. So please install, and we are going to copy the view files that I created before. They are here. I had to create all the variations because I had no idea what you guys would choose, right? So don't do this ever again. Lots of preparation time and only 50 minutes to talk, right? So don't do it. Just don't do it. Well, actually, you've seen me do it right now, so why would you want to repeat it? So we need to go to this static folder. I need to go there manually because I guess it's faster. Subfolders, that's great. Main resources, static. Let's paste them right here. I'm going to check one thing, whether my index.html has the right reference to the app.js. Yeah, it has. So I've copied an HTML, which is a view, and I've copied a JS file, which is a very basic AngularJS file. If you just use some sort of tutorial on getting started, if you don't know Angular or AngularJS, this is what you would get if you would follow that. So it's certainly not rocket science. Let's try to start up our application for the first time. This is always very it's a very tense moment, of course, for me. So bear with me for a second. This is the target that we are running is called boot run. It's a Gradle task that is added to the Gradle build by the Springwood plugin for Gradle, which was also generated for us. So this is the project that we're running. We are running the boot run task. Let's apply and try to run it. This is the plugin that I was talking about, Org Spring Framework Boot. This adds the boot run task to the Gradle build. And boot run just compiles everything and directly runs the jar file that is generated. And actually, we're seeing that it started up fine. By default, it's using Tomcat, so that requirement is also fulfilled right now. I didn't do anything with it, so that's kind of funny. So it says it's running, so let's check the local host and see if we get anything. Wow, this is great. This is nice. I haven't added any beers yet until now, so I'm not really surprised that it doesn't list anything. So maybe we should just try to add some functionality to actually list some beers so that we can see whether the list functionality is actually working. So for that, we need to add a method to the beer controller. So let's add a method to add some beers. And I want to map it to the HTTP post request. So let's say public void add beer. What we are going to need to add a beer is a completely filled beer object. So like this. And we are going to put this in the body of the post request so we can use the request body annotation. I guess you classic Spring guys will recognize this one, request body. If we want to add the beer, we can just tell the beer repository to save the beer that was given to us through the parameter. Just like this. So it's quite easy. It listens to the same URL as this one, but just post requests. So I guess this will be, let's see if it will run again. So I'm just doing a shortcut for rebuild my changes. And after it has done that, it will automatically hot deploy the changes into the running Tomcat server. So it has restarted in quite less time, so that's great. Let's see if we can add some beer. Well, it certainly looks like it. You guys should know that I've spent evenings and evenings trying to come up with this very slick user interface design. So no hate mails on this, right? So hours and hours. My family was really not happy that I spent hours. Yeah. Can someone maybe tell me their favorite beer so that we can have some test data? Sorry? Zundert. I like that one too. That's great. It's like a double or a quadruple. I'm not really sure. Quadruple, I guess. I'm gonna go with quadruple. Yeah. And it's like 10% or something, right? Yeah. I've had it a few times, so. Well, there you have it. We have added a beer right now, and it also shows up in our list, the beer list. So does this mean that everything works? Well, we just built a list and an add, but I can show you in the network tab. You know, when I did this at my company, one of my InfoSupport colleagues said, "Yeah, but I guess this is a front-end only demo, right? So you just put some static information in the HTML. I want to see these requests." So I said, "Well, you know, I can include that in my presentation, no problem." So I'll add another beer, one of my favorites, which is Ongelovige Thomas. Which is, I guess it's also a quadruple. Some pattern is emerging here, right? Yeah, 11%. And if you send this, you will see that a request has gone to the beer server, and this is the response. So there was actually a request. Oh, I guess this is the get request that was sent. Well. Yeah, this is the GET request that we're looking at, and the response consists of 2 items, which are the 2 beers that we just added. So you can see for yourself, there are actually requests flowing. This is not a client only. So that's working. Now the only thing I want to add is some functionality to edit our beers and also to delete them if we don't like them. You know, some guy from Spain at the Spanish conference asked me to add Heineken, which is not even a beer, right? Which is just, you know, owl piss. So I deleted that one right away. But well, I hadn't developed delete functionality yet, so that was the fastest delete functionality ever, because I wanted Heineken out. You can imagine, I guess. So let's add a delete method. Delete beer, and for this deletion, the only thing we actually need is a beer ID. That will be enough, so we can just get it via a request parameter. There we go. And we can just tell the beer repository to delete this one. So all these methods that I'm calling here are implemented automatically at runtime by this interface CRUD repository that I'm using. So of course you can do more complicated queries, but then you have to write them yourself. Which is also possible, no problem. And of course, we need to edit our beer, so let's map this to put. And let's say public, I guess we should do void update beer. In fact, this has the same signature as add beer, because actually we're just replacing the beer with the new values. So we can, again, do beer repository save, and it will just work. Of course, we need to test this, so let's try and do that. Rebuild the project. There we go, build was successful. The rebuild has also been successful, so let's test it for the final time. It's an in-memory database, so all the data that we entered was lost. You know, this is something I chose to do in the beginning, so we need to enter some new beers, but it's not really important. Let's just do it again. So I very much like lots of beers. I can't even choose. La Chouffe, that's a great one, I think, which is like 8% or something. Typo there. That's great. That's not very good. I also like Carmelite very much. What? Get out of my sight! Well, I can add a Heineken, but then I will use it to demo the delete functionality. Okay? Yeah, it's okay. Ugh, Heineken. Ugh, ugh. This, yeah. This is so wrong on so many levels. This. So I've made a typo in the description of La Chouffe. It wasn't intentionally, but it's a great test case for our edit functionality, right? So let's fix that. And there we go, it has been fixed. Now let's delete this sucker. There it goes. Well, guys, it seems that we've built a Spring Boot application. Maybe not in 30 minutes, but I guess it was 40. But still, it works. So thanks for bearing with me. Yeah. So let's do a quick wrap up, and maybe some time for questions. So Spring Boot gets you up and running quickly if the internet is working, right? And it assumes standard configuration so that you can move your development rapidly. and it plays nice with a really wide range of frameworks. I haven't found any framework that I wanted to use that wasn't able with the dependency starter. So that's great. And in fact, what I hoped to demonstrate today to you is that it doesn't even matter what choices you make. You've made some choices for me, and well, I could make it work anyway. So it is up to the task, and because of these deployment descriptors, these starters, and also I also like these runtime implementations of these interfaces for repositories. Well, all this together and combined will make sure that you can build your app quite quickly and with all the frameworks that you'd like. So that's great. Now, to return on one of the drawbacks, what if I prefer Java EE? Can I use something like this? Well, I've tried to research this for a bit. At least you can use a banded service because lots of Java EE application servers support this. For example, Tommy Embedded or Wildfly Swarm. So if you're a Java EE user, maybe in your project right now, and you want to use this embedded web server thing that you just can deploy just one jar, take a look at one of these products, and they can get the job done for you. This is not everything that Spring Boot has to offer, of course. So all these deployment descriptors that give you the dependencies, that's a bit harder in Java EE. There's no real equivalent of Spring Boot, but the embedded functionality could work. Quick assembly, which is related to this dependency fetching functionality, has been done before with JBoss shrink wrap. I found a blog post on this. Unfortunately, since September 2014, I haven't seen much activity. So I tried to follow it for updates, but I haven't seen much. So you could just read the blog post and see if some quick assembly is possible with Java EE. But this is where it ends. Sorry.
How about like cumulus EE and
yeah.
drop wizard kind of like
yeah.
solutions?
Yeah.
To that stuff together, like similar, but
yeah.
it doesn't provide interfaces for
of course.
data.
Yeah. I guess that would be worth a try. I guess. Yeah, but you would need to wire it all together yourself, of course. But oh, sorry. Yeah, the question was, couldn't it be possible with a product like Cumuluzi or Drop Wizard, or combine the two? And I guess it would be worth a try. So maybe one of you guys could write a blog post about it, and I'll add it to my slide for the next one. Yeah, or I could do it myself. No, it's not a problem. But a good suggestion. Thank you. Yeah.
What do you need to deploy it on a live server?
A live server? What do you mean? That's just what I did, I guess, because it was already running, and I made some changes, and then it did a redeploy, and it restarted it automatically. Or is this what you mean?
I don't really understand. Is this the deployment server where you already run it on? Do you need to build a WAR file?
No WAR file, because it just generates a jar file, and the server is embedded in the jar file. So you can just type Java -jar, and then your Spring Boot jar file, and it will just spin up your server.
When you want to run your application real life.
Yeah. I guess there's no change in the process.
Okay.
It's just what I did right there.
For production environments, it's also possible to create services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can create services for production environments. Yeah, yeah, you can. Of course, this is just a development demo, but I guess it shouldn't be any problem deploying to a live server. It would just update this jar file and reload it.
Okay.
Well, yeah. But maybe the question deserves a more elaborate answer, so we can talk afterwards. There's no problem. Yeah, it's like you read my mind. Are there any questions? More questions than were already asked? Okay, well, I'll be at the info support stand for some time, so if you have more questions, that's no problem. You can come to me. Just one final thing I would like to bring to your attention. It's just this one. So we are at the end of a very inspiring day, I guess. I had a great time. Some great session content, and the only drawback, I think, is that one day is far too short and there are far too there are not enough Java conferences in this country. So at InfoSupport, we are organizing one called JVMCon. It's a conference for the community. So everyone who buys the tickets gets a say in what is presented at the conference. So if you buy your ticket today or tomorrow, you can rate all the proposals that were sent in. And we have a few top-rated pre-programmed speakers. For example, the living legend Venkat Subramaniam. I like him very much. Also Krzysztof Kudryński and a few other speakers. And also your talk could be one of our talks if you submit before tomorrow night, 11 p.m. So you still have some time. Today is the last day for an early bird offer. So regular tickets are 79 euros, but today, last day, 39. So maybe you can all convince your managers to buy your ticket. And if you have any questions about this conference, please come ask them at the info support stand. I will be there also. So, oh yeah, very good question. When is it? 30th of January, 2018. In this venue actually. So same venue. You already know the way to here, so there's no problem. Thank you very much for your attention.